Okay, y'all have been asking me to do a tutorial on how I do the Hot Tools bag and how I do the corners with it because I don't cut out the boxy corners before I sew. So we're gonna do that right now. I'm gonna show you every step of the way and I'm gonna show you how to add a handle to it. And just a disclaimer, I've been sewing just since January, so I don't know everything about sewing, but I've spent a lot of time at the sewing machine and I've learned a lot. So if I can do it, you can do it. I'm cutting my outer fabric and my liner fabric 22 by 9 inches, 2 of each. Gotta love a fresh blade. I also cut out my Feasible fleece. I get this from Amazon. It's in my storefront. It comes in a big roll. It gives your bag a little bit of structure. All 6 pieces are 22 by 9 inches, so 2 Feasible fleece, 2 liner fabrics, and 2 outer fabrics. And I'm gonna go ahead and iron on my Feasible fleece to my outer fabric. It's best to start in the middle of your fabric and not drag the iron, but sort of just press. This Feasible fleece has little glue dots on it, and when the heat hits it, it melts and adheres to your fabric. I have my 2 pieces of outer fabric. I've got my Feasible fleece ironed onto the back. So if you are going to be doing quilting lines, you can go ahead and do that right now. I'm not doing that on this bag. These are the pull tabs. You're gonna need 2 3-inch by 3-inch pieces of whatever fabric you want. To make your handle, you're gonna need 1 strip that is about 3.5 inches by 6 to 7 inches. It doesn't really matter how long. And we need to iron these before we sew them. So for each of these, you are going to fold it in half, iron it down, and open it back up. And then you're also going to fold these halfway, like this, and then fold it over on itself, and then iron that back down. Do the same for these 2 pull tabs that are going to go on both sides of the zipper. See? So I'm going to sew each one on the outer edge and then one line this way. It doesn't mind if you have raw edges because those are going to get folded and hidden into the seam pretty soon. I like to buy zipper in bulk, so I buy a big roll of it from Amazon. It's linked in my Amazon storefront. This one I use, it's the antique brass on white, and I also have antique brass on beige, I believe it's called. I'm gonna cut my zipper about 2 inches longer than my fabric. So this is 22 inches. I'm gonna cut my zipper at 24 inches. Okay, and then there's no real easy way to show you how to add your zipper onto this, but this roll comes with a little baggie of zippers right here. So we have to add our zipper on. I put it on one side. I pull it where it's like 1 or 2 teeth showing, and then I add the other side to it because it's never gonna line up even anyways. And then what I do is I tug on the opposite side, and then I tug on the original side again, and I keep going back and forth until it catches, and that time it caught the first time. So that's how I put my zipper on. Now I'm about to sew my zipper onto my first outer piece. I'm gonna go ahead and clip the zipper together so the zipper doesn't come off the end, but I want it pretty close because I want it to overhang the side. I'll show you. Okay, so I have one of my outer pieces of fabric facing me, all right? And now I'm gonna put my zipper facing down, and I am going to overhang the actual zipper at the very end. And I'm gonna make sure this end overhangs just slightly. And then I'm gonna add my liner fabric right on top as a sandwich. Now mine is the same on both sides, but if you have a liner fabric that is one-sided, you wanna put good sides together. And then you're gonna make a sandwich, and you're gonna clip or pin your zipper in place, just like this. Now I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine, and I'm gonna sew a line all the way across this. I don't have a zipper foot, but I like to put my stitch on J and then move it all the way to the left. On my machine, which is the Brother SC700, it's this one right here, and then I have it on length 2.5. It really doesn't matter, but that gives me a pretty clean edge. And as I'm sewing, I can feel the zipper right here, and I keep it lined up along with the side of the foot. Now that we have our zipper sewn into the first side, we are gonna flip it right side out, and then we are gonna iron it down. That step you can skip if you're really good, but I get cleaner lines when I use the iron. I like to iron the top, and then I flip it, and then iron the bottom. Flip. Now we're going back to the sewing machine and we're putting a top stitch right along this edge. All right, when you top stitch this, you want to make sure that your liner fabric is tugged all the way flat underneath so that you don't get any weird like bubbles. Look how nice that looks. We've got that top stitch going all the way along. Here's the back side of it. The liner sewn in, no raw edges. Now we're gonna add the other side to this. My second piece of outer fabric, face up. You're gonna take the piece that with the zipper on it, you're gonna face it down. So right sides together. Line that up at the top. And then we're gonna take our piece of liner and we're gonna sandwich it in. Now we're gonna sew the same thing, a line all the way down. Iron it flat, and then we're gonna top stitch again, just like we did on the first side. Guess what? You're done with your iron. You can turn it off now. Now that we've gotten our zipper sewn in top stitch on both sides, liner fabric's right here. All right, you're gonna keep it flat. We are going to unzip this a little bit to about there, okay? And then we're gonna add a tab right here and a tab right here. I like to find the prettiest side of my tab, which is obviously this side. I'm gonna fold it in half, so the pretty side is out. And then we are going to make sure your liner is with your outer fabric, and we're gonna place our tab folded in with the edges towards the outside seam, okay? And I just like to hold mine in place. You can clip yours if you want. Go real slow over that zipper and make sure your zipper is closed right here, but make sure your actual zipper is on the inside of the bag so that we don't lock it out here. This is what we're looking like, okay? So now when we zip closed, our zipper is locked in, all right? Repeat this on the other side. All right, at this step, I like to open my zipper at least halfway. That way I can turn this inside out when I need to. You're gonna take your outer fabrics, right sides together, and you are gonna sew a line all the way across here. You're gonna do the same thing with your liner fabric, all right? Like this, but you are gonna leave a gap in the very middle, big enough that you can turn your project inside out with. I like to make it big enough where my hand can fit through it. All right, at this point, you've got both of your sides sewn like this. You can see the inside, here's the zipper. You can trim this off. We don't need that anymore. Okay, now you're gonna open up your outer fabric like this, and you are going to line up this middle seam with your zipper on both sides. So right here, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pin that in place while I work with the rest of it. This is what we're looking like, and we are going to sew a stitch right across here on both ends. So we sewed both of our edges closed. We still have a pocket here where we're going to be able to turn out, and we are going to trim off any excess right here. You don't have to do this, but it does help. This is where people usually box out their corners. They draw a box here, they cut them, then they pull them out and sew them to box their corners. I do mine a little bit different. I know some people do it this way. It helps me a lot because I always lose my liner fabric, and my liner fabric doesn't catch in the corner, and then I have to re-sew everything up in the corners. So you're gonna turn your whole project out. Yeah, turn your whole project out right now. Now, if you made a tiny hole, you're gonna be fighting with it. That's why I like to be able to fit my whole hand in, so I can go in and reach in and pull it out. Poke out your corners. This is what we're looking like. We look like a big wet wipes bag. You're gonna wanna sew up your liner. All we have left to do is box our corners. So with it turned right side out, so we're looking good at this point, we are gonna take our corners. Make sure your liner fabric is tucked all the way up in your corners and everything's flattened out. You're gonna take your corner like this, and you are going to flatten it down just like that. And we're gonna sew along here, and we're gonna do that to all four corners. I'm gonna show you a tip that's gonna help you on the sewing machine so that all your corners match. And I'm also gonna show you how to sew in the handle. My personal preference is to sew the handle on the side of the bag where it's zip closed. So when the bag is closed, that's where the handle is gonna be. I just prefer that because if I'm carrying it around, I want my zipper to be up here. I don't know why, I just do it like that every time. You want to make sure that seam goes straight down this triangle. I'm going to show you up close. You may have noticed this piece of washi tape right here. This is my guide to box out my corners. I do my makeup bags and my Hot Tools bags the same. It is 2 inches from my needle. What I want is my triangle that I've created right here to box my corners out. I want the tip of that to go along this. And then I'm going to sew this line right here. But this step might be a little bit tricky, so follow along, rewind it if you need to. We are going to put our handle pretty side out, and we are going to put it along our sew line, okay, just like this, and we are going to line it up in the middle of this seam right here. All right, that way it matches on both sides when we sew the other one in. So real quick, let's recap. I've got my triangle tip along my guide. I've got my needle out here. I've got my handle about to get sewn in right here. We're going to hide this frayed edge right here, so don't worry about that just yet. And it needs to be towards the center of the bag. Okay, that's where we are. Let's do the other side. And I'm going to sew that right in, and I'm going to make sure that this isn't curled. This is flat. We're going to flip the bag to the other side and sew these 2 corners up too. No handle on this side. I like to do this with my zipper open so I can reach in there and make sure my liner fabric is flat. Here's our bag so far. We have our corners boxed out, but we are going to need to trim these little flaps off. And I'm even going to trim off this edge a little bit. You want to get really close to the seam line, but don't cut your stitches or your bag's going to fall apart, and that ain't good. So that's where we are right now. And then in a minute, we're going to hide this. All right, one more step. We're going to flip it back inside out. Now, this is the inside of one of my corners, and this is the side with the handle. I'm going to flatten this out. You can use clips so that this doesn't roll underneath your foot and like kind of get wonky. But the goal is to sew about 1/4 to 1/2 inch in right across here, and that will hide your raw edge inside the seam. It's called a French seam, or you can't see a raw edge on the inside or the outside of the bag. So it hides everything for you, and it just looks really nice, and it also adds structure. So let me show you up close. Don't forget the back stitch on this. Let's take a look. This is what it looks like on the inside. When I flip it back out, look how pretty that is. And the handle is sewn in there, all nice and pretty. Let's do all 4 corners. Okay, we flipped it right side out. Here it is, y'all, we did it. And zip it closed. I just added my little logo tag, I love it. And that is a Hot Tools bag with the handle. I love it, it's so cute. And I love this fabric too. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Good luck. Okay, bye.